And that's why we also decided, rather than having a poor speaker who doesn't have much time or we don't have any energy left, we're each going to ask each of you to bring, apart from Suzanne can get off with it that time if he wants, that we each bring a little something, just a little nugget of a festival that we celebrate. And if we celebrate the same one, we'll have to consult each other to see that we're going to say something different on the 25th of March.
Quakers don't do festivals.
There you are. Well, then that's a good reason for us to tell us why you don't do festivals, Nigel. So that's your job. All right. Well, thank you for being here, those of you who are. And we'll begin with Suzanne, hoping that other people will join in. There's somebody going to manage. There's Ian. Right. Good.
Okay, let me share my PowerPoint.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so this is Buddhism. As you know, that Buddha was born in Lumbini in Nepal, and then he was enlightened after 35 years in Buddha Gaya in current India. Right. So this is just a short biography of the Buddha, that he was born 2,613 years ago in Nepal. His father was King Suddhodana of Kapilavastu. Mother was Queen Mahamaya. His wife was Princess Yasodhara, and he had a son. His name was Rahula. And at the age of 29, he left the palace and become a royal ascetic. And after 6 years of study and practice, he became the Buddha. And after that, he stayed for 45 years teaching, spreading his findings. And at the age of 80, he passed away. And that's we call the Parinirvana Day. Now, his main teachings are the Four Noble Truths, which is there is a suffering, it has a cause, it can be end, and there is the way. And in terms of there is the way, then it comes all the three other factors. That's a dependent origination. Whatever is subject to origination is all subject to cessation. And that's again gives us three characteristics. That's everything changes, and that's unsatisfactory and non-self. And the way, that's what is the Buddhism. That's called Eightfold Noble Path, which is divided into three. That's a wisdom part, a morality part, and meditation. So these are the basic fundamental teachings of the Buddha. Now, in terms of the important days that we are going to discuss, and from a different religious point of view today, in Buddhism, there are two different types of important days. One is related to the Buddha, and another one is basically related to or based on nationality, ethnicity, and other tradition. Now, first, related to the Buddha and Buddhism, there are main four events, important days. That's Maghapuja, which is in February. Sometimes, modern days nowadays, it is also known as Buddhist Valentine Day. Somehow, some years, it's fall into the 14th. So that's the Maghapuja. And then another one is Vesak Puja, which is the celebration of the birth, enlightenment, and his death. Normally happens in May, full moon in May. And the third one is Asala Puja, normally happens in July. That's the starting of Buddhist Lent, and also the day when the Buddha gave the first discourse. And the fourth important days, that's a community that come together and offer the robe to the Buddhist monks, those who have fulfilled the requirements of the Buddhist Lent. And that's called a Katina robe offering. Normally takes place between October, full moon of October and November, full moon of November time. And minor days that not much celebrated but recognized like Attami Puja Day, which is the cremation of the day, Buddha, which is after his passing away in Vesak Day in May, after 1 week later. And a second one is a Pavarana Day, and that's the end of the Buddhist Lent, and that's also one of the requirements that whoever observes the Buddhist Lent has to fulfill that in order to organize the Katina robe offering ceremony. Patimokkha Day, which is again a fortnightly recitation of monastic codes, which is 227 rules that every fortnightly we will be reciting that as remembering those and reflecting that. So this is the related to the Buddha and Buddhism. And a second important days in Buddhism that's based on a nationality and ethnicity. The Songkran, that's a new Asian New Year normally on 13th of April, and this is again like in Thailand, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, India, and Nepal. At the same time, we have our own so-called New Year. So they're called Asian New Year, and that's also pretty much related to the Buddhist temple, and the Buddhist monks are heavily involved in it, particularly in Thailand, Southeast Asia, and Sri Lanka, although it may not be much in India, Bangladesh, and in Nepal. Portion Day is again normally it's in June. It is believed that that's the full moon that the Sri Lanka received Buddhism from India. So Sri Lankan Buddhists will be celebrating it with a great gratitude. And then this third and a fourth are basically depends on which tradition and which country we are in. Particular, this Remembrance Day here in Aberdeen, we have started it since the beginning of our center, second Sunday of the January. So these are the 4 different dates. Now, the celebration of important days, according to Buddhism, when we look at it, Buddha said that whoever does bodily speaking and mentally thinks good, conduct good things, whether it's in the morning, whether it's in the afternoon, whether it's in the evening, that's a good thing. So that's a good time. Now, when we talk about the Maghapuja, which happens to be this month, that's Magha means the month. Okay, this is the 3rd Nula month, and then Punami is a full moon, and the Puja means worship or paying respect. So it's happened that on the full moon day, now this took place during the time of the Buddha. Now, when? So it happened 2,613 years ago, and the 2568 is the date that the Buddha passed away, and he lived for 45 years. So as a result, it's 2,613 years ago. And this Maghapuja, he gave it after 9 months of his enlightenment. And the place that he gave this, the place it happened is called Veluwana Monastery, which is a bamboo grove, belongs to the King Bimbisara, who offered this grove to him to stay. Why is it important? And the reason this is important because there are 4 things kind of happened at the same time. And the number one is that all the monks who came together, that's why it is called a great gathering or great assembly. All the monks who came together, they all, within 9 months, ordained by the Buddha by himself, in a word called Ehi Bhikkhu Upasambhada, which means you may be the monks now on. Right? And all the monks, that 1,250 monks came together to meet without any prior invitation. And it happened to be on a full moon of this Magha. That's why these are known as fourfold assembly and a great assembly. Why is important? It's because the Buddha on that occasion gave these 3 main guidance. Number one is Buddhist ideology. principle teachings, and then a way to practice. Now, when we say ideology, so this is Buddhist ideology. That's patience is the forbearance, is the more foremost austerity. And that's again, in the past, it was believed that you have to torture yourself to get the liberation. Now he is saying that it's not about the physical torture, but developing the patience inside our minds and the heart. So that is the path to lead. And then Nibbana is something that liberating from the greed, hatred, and delusion. And that is what the Buddha says is the greatest supreme goal. And now from there, again, because 1,250 monks came together in the meeting, so the Buddha was basically giving that as a monk, one should not be harmed to another people, another person, and at the same time should not be oppressing any other people or any other beings. That is the quality that a monk should have. So this is a summary that is emphasized the patience and endurance as a supreme spiritual practice, and reject the idea that self-mortification and extreme asceticism leads to liberation, and it affirms that the true renunciants must not harm any or oppress any other beings, but practice the compassion and non-violence. In terms of the principal teachings, again, this is again one of the famous that normally we refer it, and we normally try to practice as much as possible. That's abstaining from doing any unwholesome, but cultivate wholesome things and purify the mind. So this is principal teachings of the Buddha. Now, all the teachings, 45 years that he explained, normally based on these three principles. Now, ways of practicing, this is like a dissemination, like as a monk or as a Buddhist, whenever you're going to teach or whenever you're going to spread the teachings of the Buddha, one should following these one. So should not speak ill of any other being, other people, or should not cause any harm to any others, and then restraining in accordance with the precepts, at least precept, and then moderate of eating, dwelling in a secluded abode, and again always strive for the higher state of the mind. And that's again is one of the highest thing that all the Buddhists trying to practice, and this is the teachings of all the Buddhas. Now, this again summarizes that the refrain from harmful speech and actions, follow the discipline, practice moderation in food and material needs, and seek solitude and cultivate meditation, and diligently strive for mental development until liberation. So on the day, what we do normally, in the morning, normally Buddhists would visit to the temples, or on the day in the morning, they would be standing in front of the house to give alms, which is food that the monks come and collect. And then they normally come to the temple to have some performances and when the rituals, participating in the rituals. And pretty much a lot of people would come and stay in a temple observing the precepts as a one-day retreat, and listening and reflecting on these three principles that the Buddha taught on that day. In the evening, particularly it's in Asia, but in the UK, we normally do not do in the evening. Normally we do in the afternoon because of the weather and the situation and so on. So this circumambulating around the Buddha or the pagoda, holding the having the flower in our hand, flower, incense, and candles, holding that, and we will be reciting the virtues of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of his teaching, and qualities of the community. So taking 3 rounds, and that's how we end. So this is it is not only a day of a worship, but also a time of deep contemplation and a renewal of one's commitment to the teachings of avoiding doing unwholesome, cultivate wholesome, and purify the mind. So overall, this is known as the Maghapuja. And in the meantime, as I have said, sometimes nowadays it is also known as Valentine Day, Buddhist Valentine Day. And that's simply because it's like loving yourself so that you're not going to do anything harm. Once you have done harm, then there is a result that you will be acceptable. You have to accept the results. So if you have avoided from the beginning, then you don't need to worry about it. So that's how it's like a Valentine for yourself, not for another person. So that's the theme. So thank you for this opportunity and this Maghapuja. This is the Maghapuja Day. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. I hope we can get that on somewhere onto our